Hey guys, Matt.
Mike.
And Mike. We are doing Shooting the Breeze, I think is what we call it.
We've given up of trying to give it a name.
We don't know the name of it, but it's the IronTrap podcast. Basically, this has evolved into us some weeks just talking about a random topic that comes up, whether it's just us browsing social media or going to a car events and conversations we have, things we overcome, and it makes me a lot of times I just think of that. I'm like, oh, that would be a good podcast discussion. A lot of times it's us going to car shows or swap meets, and you're just having a conversation with a guy at a swap meet or a show, and you're like, ooh, that's
a good topic.
That's a good topic. So that's what we're going to be talking about this week. So is a topic that kind of came up.
Like 30 seconds before we turn the cameras on.
Yeah, we're pretty bad at this, but we just literally we have a bunch of ideas, but there's one that I had, and that's what came up. So first, before we start, obviously, if you haven't subscribed or
if you're listening to this, head to YouTube. I add visuals on top for the video. If you're watching the video and you don't have time, you can head to all the places you get your podcasts to listen to the audio while you're in your car, in the shop, or whatever. So we normally are terrible at plugging that. We usually wait to the very end. So
yeah.
I'm glad we're doing it now.
I think you said we're kind of high on the automotive podcast, believe it or not.
Yeah, surprisingly. For the amount of downloads that we get, we're not in the top 10, obviously, but we're doing pretty good. We're doing decent. So thanks to everyone that's listened and followed us on the audio side. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's surprising that we even show up at all.
People want to listen to us ramble.
Because we don't let me stand up. Because we don't really push it like other people are pushing their podcast every day. We're kind of like, yeah. If you watch, you watch. If not, whatever.
We have the same idea as we did with the YouTube channel. Kind of just let it grow organically instead of cramming it down everyone's throat.
Yeah, and if it sucks and people tell us it sucks everywhere we go, then we'll stop doing it. But
yes,
so far that hasn't happened much or at all. So just a quick thing, do a little what's going on at IronTrap right now. If you don't watch the videos or keep up super close with what's going on, this summer has been kind of crazy with the new building.
Insanity.
So we got the new building put up, got concrete done. Finally, everything as far as contractors go is done. I've been so stressed this spring and summer trying to line up all the contractors and make everything happen as it should. Even when we were starting to build the building, there was some numbers got transposed by the builder when they submitted permits, and there was a question on setback. In the end, everything was fine no matter what, but I was for about 24 hours was losing my mind because we didn't know if the building could be where we thought it was going to be. Ended up being totally fine.
Yep.
Luckily, our inspector and permit guy in my township is really easygoing compared to a lot of other townships. And
we got permits?
Oh yeah, people don't think we got permits. Yeah,
that's a permanent structure. Are you sure about that?
Yeah. We just willy-nilly, just like it's 1957.
The amount of comments on the building video where people are amazed that we could build that where we did, it's insane.
Yeah. Just because you live in an area that has an HOA that you're not even allowed to park more than one car outside, doesn't mean that I lived in a area like that. So luckily, it is unusual.
Yes,
I am in town. But
You're technically in the borough, correct?
Yeah, I'm in the borough of my hometown. But because of kind of where we are, I have a large piece of property for being in town. And the way all the laws are, I looked everything up ahead of time and asked all the right questions. And I actually could have went larger with that structure, believe it or not. I could have went a little bit bigger, but I kind of it's already was obnoxious, and that was how far.
And we're also technically on the edge of the borough. And we're very close to. We back up to an industrial park essentially.
Yeah, there's a foundry. There's the YMCA. There's a retirement community center. So literally right next to us. So while if you live in a little development, yes, putting a huge building up like that would be weird. But one block over, there's literally a foundry with smoke going up, and you smell it. And there's busyness going on. There's another block down the street. There's another heater assembly. I don't want to call it plant, but it's a small warehouse building where they build heaters and stuff. So we're in town, but we're right next to an industrial part of my town. So that's what was going on. So we've been really busy with that. We got our pallet racking and all that stuff pretty much. The majority of it is up. We still have a little more to do. Ryan, we have a young guy, Ryan, that is a high school I think he'll be a senior maybe
Correct.
next
He'll be
year.
a senior. Just turned 18.
Yeah, so he started out just hanging around. I do stuff really old school. I learned pretty quickly that a lot of people get excited about what we're doing and offer to help. And we've had quite a few people that have come through that are very excited. They show up once or twice. They're excited to be exposed and be where we film IronTrap. Ooh, like it's a TV set. It's fucking nothing. It's
just three knuckleheads in a garage with a camera.
It's not that exciting. Usually I'm wandering around like not knowing what's going on. But so Ryan just showed up.
He spent the entire I was thinking about it the other day. We met him around Das Oxfest last year. So he spent like an entire school year coming 1 to 2 days a week and literally just sweeping the floor, doing just randomness.
Yes. That's the chain hoist.
That's louder than I've ever heard it, I think.
Yeah.
I wonder if they have the engine on it.
So Ryan just showed up and literally like there was a lot of days he just stood there and watched. And I didn't really give him a lot of direction because he didn't seem like he was. I read him wrong. I actually thought he wasn't going to be as interested or stick around. Versus I've had other young guys or people that have showed up that have a background in automotive. You know, we have older guys that were lifelong car guys, whatever. They come around for a month or two and they're like, oh, this is like real work. And then they stop showing up. I've had young guys that are like, oh, my family's really into cars. I'm really into cars. I love your YouTube channel, all this stuff. They show up like twice and they cancel every other time they're supposed to show up. And I just don't have time for that. So Ryan's been showing up.
He shows up ahead of time. He shows up, 5 to 10 minutes early. He's very consistent. He's never called out. He works hard. He's carried a lot of pallet racking and pallets, and he's never directly complained. He's made some comments about this sucks, but he's never been like, I don't want to do this
anymore.
But
we're like, this sucks.
I'm also carrying pallets with him, so I go, I agree with you. This does suck.
Yeah, so he's been doing a great job. So that's a lot of what's going on with that. My nephew's obviously been here this summer, which has been cool. People have been noticing that in the videos. Yep. For anybody that's some of the questions we've been getting, he's not necessarily super interested in building a traditional hot rod currently. He's just hanging out. He likes cars. He likes mechanical stuff. He's very advanced for his age. So he's just kind of here for something to do while he's off of school. And he's down to help with whatever. He has that little Ford Ranger project he's been working on. I've been teaching him like last week that he was here, he learned how to use the stud gun. So I showed him how to do it 2 or 3 times, and then I walked off, and he was pulling dents all day in his truck. So
yeah, the front end of his truck looked like a porcupine after Matt taught him. There's just studs everywhere.
Yeah, so he's just like all of us did. I kind of gave him a little bit of instruction and said, you got to learn by doing. So he's been doing that. It's been great. He's currently downstairs with a 32B engine, putting it on the run stand with Steve, and he's going to tinker with getting it running. He loves Will It Run. My brother and I were talking, and like my brother's telling me how he's always watching Will It Run videos. So like I've noticed anytime we got an old engine, he jumps right in. He likes trying to figure out how to make it run or what's wrong with it, which is really cool. So that's a little bit of what's going on. Other thing I want to mention is Wheels of Time.
Yep.
Mikunji is a great show that's a multi-day show, street rod show. It's been going on forever, and hot rod show.
I'll put the dates down below. I think it's the last full weekend in August. It's like the 28th, 29th, something like that.
So we'll be there as always. We have a big tent that they graciously give us, and they've started to give us a handful of extra spaces to park kind of old school or nostalgia stuff around our booth.
Yep.
So I've been trying to make some phone calls to people I know. If you have something that's interesting or has history or hasn't been out in a while, send us an email or a message. We may be able to put you near the booth, especially if it's something that hasn't been out in quite a while. That's the whole idea, is to have kind of different stuff. Our booth every year has different cars. This year we're going to try and do a roadster theme. So we're going to have, or convertible theme. So we're planning to have the green 32 ruined roadster there. I don't think it'll be 100% done, but we'll have a lot of the major things have been done. The DeLorean roadster will be there, which wasn't there last year. The interior's done in that.
Has it ever been?
No, it's never been. I took it to a cruise in, but it's never been there. I was gone last year.
I couldn't remember if it was there.
Oh,
the year
it was
before.
Gone. Yeah.
Well, no, I knew last year. I meant the year before. I didn't know if
it was. I didn't. I just started on it the year before.
Oh, gotcha.
That will be there. We're planning on having a 38 convertible in its crappy state but drivable state there, and I don't know what else. Our buddy Ben's bringing from Delaware, Ben Selman.
Oh, yeah.
Good friend of mine. He has a Model A Roadster that's channeled, that is bitchin', that's in bare metal, that he's been working the bugs out, and he's going to bring this year, and we'll have it under the booth.
Should we bring the link in?
Yeah, no. That takes up too much real estate. Maybe
take up the entire booth.
Yeah, in a year or two. So, as always, we're going to have a bunch of stuff. But if you have something that's like, especially if it's historic or it's a real old custom or hot rod, and especially if it hasn't been out in a while, we'd love to have it at the booth. Just send us an email and maybe we can fit you in. I don't have a ton of spaces, but again, we're trying to get some different stuff there. So we'd love to have some interesting cars.
IronTrapGarage@gmail.com.
That's it. So, topic
yes.
for this week. And this is something that kind of sparked my idea for this was Bonneville is going on.
Yes.
Or this past weekend, and also still currently going.
I don't know if it'll go on. It's going on now, this Tuesday. I don't know if it'll be out when this comes.
Yeah, but it's
right
been
now.
happening while we're filming.
Yes.
Well, in preparation for this, it's been going on. This past weekend is when all the people go for the madness. All the guys that just drive their cars out and hang out and all that. That's going on. But guys are still racing. Like yesterday, people were racing and setting records. I think today they're still racing. So what got me thinking about that is the different ways you can enjoy the hobby.
Yes.
So there's some good stuff I wanted to talk about. And then there's also what made me think of this is sometimes talking to people or you hear guys talk about other people in the hobby. I hear people that are like, they act like you can only enjoy the hobby the way that they enjoy the hobby.
Yes.
So as I've been getting older, I've been understanding how I enjoy the hobby, and sometimes I feel guilty, like I'm not enjoying, like when I was younger, like I didn't enjoy the hobby the same as other people, so I felt guilty about it. But over the years, I've been slowly realizing that like the way I enjoy the hobby is different than other people. But the stuff that like a lot of times when I try and do other things, I'm like, it doesn't like stresses me out. So like, for instance, going to huge, like a lot of my friends, they like to go to these huge shows, Good Guys and Dead Man's Curve and some of these shows that have like tens of thousands of people and thousands of cars. It's it kind of gives me anxiety. I'm actually like,
I'm not a big people. Matt and I are kind of the same. Like big concerts, him and I are the same. Don't go to big concerts. When both of us growing up used to go to like hardcore shows and like
shows
real
and stuff,
small, under 100 people, way more fun. You go to a concert with like thousands of people, I'm usually miserable the entire time.
Yeah, I don't, or I'm standing way in the back.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to get as far away from the people as possible. Or now that I'm older, I sit at the bar, even though I don't drink. It's just like get away from all the people. But
car shows are the same way. There's just too many physical people in the way.
And the only way I get around it, I found over the years for myself, is to have a booth or have a swap meet space, because I'm able to kind of be in my area and not jammed in. Like I don't like the stress of sitting in line for hours trying to get into a show, or just like being locked into it. Some of these bigger shows you're in all day, and it's kind of like I'm very much like more of a drive my car to go visit a friend, go to a buddy's garage. Like last summer, we like got a few friends together and we cruised to the Mahoning Drive-In, which is an old school drive-in thing. And like there was only a handful of us, but I had more fun than going to a car show because I was driving the car. I enjoy driving back roads and the driving to a place and then hanging out with my friends and stuff like that. Some of the smaller events, I kind of like them. And then like swap meets are kind of the same way. I like driving an old car to a swap meet. I've been doing more of that this summer. Like I drove the DeLorean Roadster to the Lehigh Valley Model A show and swap, and I just set up some stuff out of the trunk of the DeLorean Roadster, and I had like the most fun at that. I was driving there by myself early in the morning, and on the way home, I brought just enough parts and threw it down on the table on the tarp, and it was like I was still in the event. But I didn't have to wait in line or get parked in with everybody else. It was kind of I could just sit in my chair and enjoy it. So that's a lot of what I found as far as in driving the cars. So some people, we have friends that like they want to drive cross country in their car for 3 days, and I'd like to do that sometime. But like with my current life, I can't even. Like, we're always on such a schedule.
Yeah, well,
that's
part of the problem is this.
Yeah.
Like, we film 3 videos a week. We sell a ton of parts.
Yep.
Like, we have to, unfortunately, feed the machine
yes.
to keep going. But eventually maybe we'll get to the point where we have enough other people helping us, employees.
Yep.
Not a ton, but some other employees that you and I could.
Or we get ahead enough for once, which is not possible.
We have talked about getting ahead for 7 years.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
It happened one time.
When I went to Australia and I was forced to.
Yeah, we shot like 12 videos in a week.
Yeah, so that is, some people I know definitely.
It's definitely a goal. I mean, driving a car across country is like the ultimate goal.
But I also want to like I know some guys a lot of people I know that do that. It's like a bomb run type deal where they're like hauling ass trying to get to Bonneville, and then they spend 3 days there, and then they're hauling ass to get back home. Like, for me, I'd rather like do it super slow, like take a month and then drive for a couple days, stop and visit some people and hang out.
Or no one wants to drive. I can drive the highway in a modern car and be super comfortable in air conditioning.
Yeah.
If I'm driving a hot rod across country, I'd rather take back roads and see more of the country. When you're blasting on the highway, you don't really.
But I get it. People they're trying to go
to an
event.
They're on a time crunch.
Yeah, they want to go to an event, and their thing is they want to get to that event.
Yeah.
Like, so if I could do a long distance drive like that, I see myself more enjoying it, like you're saying. Like, I would pick, maybe you'd take not the major highways. Maybe you take some side, major roads or something. But it would be more of like taking my time because I want to stop and see people and hang out and see. I don't want to see the highway. I kind of want to see the interesting stuff that isn't like. That's what I enjoy around us is driving the back roads. And there's some of my favorite landmarks that you stop at and take a photo, or you have lunch. I want to have lunch at some little like diner on the side road. Like that's what I enjoy. So
if anyone wants to fund IronTrap National Tour 2025, let us know.
Yeah, getting away for like a month would be very hard, but that's a goal someday. But like. Some people definitely enjoy that. I've noticed that, like the big shows, driving long distances, that's like how they enjoy it. And that's super cool. But some of those guys I've noticed, they kind of shit on other people. Oh, that guy, he doesn't drive his car 18 hours. He's not like, I think that's an odd thing because that's how you enjoy the hobby. Like, I still drive my cars. I drive my cars almost in the summer, I barely drive my modern pickup truck at all. I drive every day. If I have to go do something, I'm driving an old vehicle.
Especially now that we have Big Red. Yeah. Because anytime you need pickup stuff, you literally just hop in Big Red and drive that instead.
Yeah. Yesterday I drove like an hour to and from to pick up a Roadster pickup for a buddy of mine, a Model A Roadster pickup. And like, I could have taken my truck, but I took Big Red. It was super fun, and it was still driving an old vehicle. So like, I've noticed that's weird that people like.
And some of those dudes that drive across country, on the flip side, don't drive their cars as much day to day. They're more like, I drive it an hour to this show. Like, they're not driving it as a car for like a daily driver.
I think it depends on the person, but like, I think that the whole idea of like shitting on somebody because they don't enjoy the hobby the same as you do, and like, there's a lot of people that they actually just enjoy, and I have friends that are like this, that just enjoy the collecting. Like, and I'm a little bit that way. Like, for me, the hunt for the new project or the new parts.
You don't say. There's an entire room behind us.
Yeah, I'm creating a museum.
Yes.
So so a big part of that is the finding and collecting. So for me, that's like probably half of the hobby.
Yeah.
Maybe not a half, but like a big part of the hobby is finding and collecting and preparing and dreaming to build a new project.
I'd say a third, because the other third's building. The other third's driving.
Yep. So there's some people that just solely collecting. That I know a lot of older guys and people in general. They have a big collection. I've talked to some friends recently that have collections, and they're like, I just knowing I have the stuff and walking into my garage and enjoying having it, and maybe they take it for coffee or something. That's enough for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. Like, it's
well, at the end of the day, the biggest thing is that we're just keeping old cars alive. However you enjoy the hobby, whether it's you have a building full of barn finds that you never touch, it's also important that they're being saved. They may not be on the road, but eventually someday someone may put that on the road and preserve it.
Yeah.
People are preserving it in different ways. Some guys are driving them. Some guys are just stuffing them in a barn for 50 years, but they're being preserved regardless.
Right. And that's probably where I've noticed that another thing, like in our videos, when we do these collections where we buy out estates, or we buy a big portion of an estate, in the comments, people are just like, totally talking crap on these
Well,
guys.
the New Hampshire dude,
Yep.
the guy that we literally just bought all the Model A stuff from.
So many comments.
Everyone was like, he was a hoarder. He was doing the same thing that we are doing, buying and selling. He may have been a little bit harder to deal with. That's why he had so much stuff. He wasn't a very good salesman, we'll say. He was, pretty hard and strict on his prices, but he was saving all of it. Not all of it was stored outside. It was stored in a nice manner, and it was organized.
Yeah.
Hoarder is totally the opposite. It's chaos. There's
Yep.
trash mixed in, and he was doing it correctly.
Yep.
Just it was in a little bit of excess. That's all.
And I think we didn't talk to the family in depth, but it seemed to me that his way he enjoyed the hobby was the buying and the selling and finding the stuff. I didn't really see any evidence of having a complete vehicle.
No.
Now, he may have at some point in his life, but he didn't in what we saw. So for me, from after he's gone, it's hard to say. But viewing his stuff, it seemed to me that the buying and selling and the swap meeting, that was how he enjoyed the hobby. I know a lot of guys that do that don't really have a car, or they have a project car that never got on the road, but they're at every freaking swap meet hunting and selling.
And that guy was going to what did the grandson say, 30 some years going to Hershey, and he was 9 hours away. So he really enjoyed. He had a travel trailer with a big trailer that he packed up and loaded up to go to Hershey every year.
Yep.
So that's what he enjoyed, probably more of the friendships of meeting all the dudes that he saw at Hershey and all of his friends. Mm-hmm. And that was how he engaged in the hobby more than driving an old car.
Yeah, so that's, and again, there's no reason to speak down about that because he did that. He saved so many parts that even though he didn't sell all that stuff and people were complaining that he hoarded it away, but he saved the stuff. So regardless, now that stuff's getting out.
Imagine what he did sell, though.
Yeah, I'm sure he sold a lot.
Yeah, because, there was 0 Roadster parts. Mm-hmm. There was very little coupe parts minus the few doors that we got. Mm-hmm. There was no Roadster doors. There was no deck lids. So you can't acquire all that Model A stuff and have 0 trunk lids whatsoever.
Yeah, he was selling. So that's another way that I've learned over the years, because I've also learned with trying to buy stuff from especially older guys.
Yeah.
I've given up on some of the guys. You realize that owning the piece or the car or the part brings them joy. There's no need to keep bothering them to buy it because they're not going to sell it. A lot of them will just tell you, all right, you can buy it when I'm dead, or somebody can deal with it.
I've heard that many times.
Yeah, so that the joy of owning it and knowing they have it is what's important, not driving it. And sure, because you drive your car across country and you take it to shows, that's how you enjoy it. Some of the people just enjoy having the stuff and looking at it like it's more of a museum piece or a, whatever.
That's also detrimental, though, because some of them don't store it in a good manner, and it sits and gets really bad.
Well, there's anything.
That's true.
They're abusing the stuff no matter what the method is. Is not good, but that's how they enjoy it, and you're not going to change that person or
definitely not
getting angry with them,
especially not an 80 or 90-year-old dude. Good luck.
Yeah, so I don't know why, especially on these Facebook groups, you see people losing their minds over the guy won't sell it, or he won't sell it to me, or blah blah blah, and there's all this discussion or hoarding, and it's their fucking item. They don't need to sell it to you. Why do you get upset like that? That's an entitlement that you think that they have to sell it to you because they're not doing something with it.
Doing what you want to do with it,
yeah.
And the other thing is 90% of the stuff that we're chasing is not that rare.
Yeah.
It's out there. You just, you get fixated on one thing and you pound the dude to death, and if you annoy him enough, he'll just tell you to pound sand, and then tell his wife, don't sell it to that guy because he annoyed me for 20 years.
Yep.
So it's tough.
There's probably there's definitely there's a way to tread lightly with that. But I think, again, shitting on someone because that's how they enjoy collecting or the hobby of just because they own a 32 Roadster and they're not doing anything with it. No. The joy of owning that 32 Roadster is what's... Some of these guys, they like the joy of other people wanting it. I've noticed. It's they're like, I have it.
The carrot.
Yeah, and I've heard some stories about Jim Street, who owned the Cookie T.
Oh yeah.
And he owned Golden Sahara. There's a lot of stories I was reading online where people were saying he would people were trying to buy it from him. They would come to visit him, and I guess he had multiple buildings.
They take him to the wrong building.
He'd take them to the wrong building, or he'd waste their whole day taking them around and never take them to the building where the car was, or you'd waste a whole day there.
Well, wasn't the what was the tea they just found?
Oh yeah, uncertainty.
Wasn't the same thing like that? Like the dude that owned the car knew where it was at, but wouldn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
And it just sat in a warehouse in L.A. And then Galpin Auto bought it, and it turned out only being 2 miles from their shop.
Yeah, something like that.
And they were looking for it. What's his name? Is it Dave?
Dave Shutton, yeah.
Dave Shutton has been looking for 30 years, and it was within 5 miles of him in L.A.
Right. Yeah, so that, some of these people, they like that. Yeah. They like that people are chasing them.
Yep.
And it's
I know where it is, but I'm not going to tell you.
It's like a pretty girl that doesn't want to get a boyfriend because she likes everybody chasing her, or guy.
Yeah, whatever.
But so yeah, I think some of that that's how people enjoy the hobby.
And there's some dudes that we know, they enjoy building cars. They build it, and then within a year, it's gone and sold. They drive it a handful of times, and you do that a little bit with some of the cars that aren't keepers.
Yeah, that is sometimes kind of fun. I like to say you get it out of your system. So for me, there's a type of car I want to build. So the Roadster pickup was a good example. I wanted a down and dirty kind of dry lakes looking Roadster pickup. You see in a lot of the old photos of people driving them. It sits high. It's crude. It's whatever. I built it. I had a ton of fun driving it for half a summer, I'll say, and then and that's been getting a lot of.
comments. Yeah.
We sold that car. We sold that truck.
I don't know. We've talked about it a bunch of times. That car's been gone for it'll be a year this weekend.
Just about, yeah.
Or next weekend. Sorry.
Yeah. So that was a good example. I was driving it. I was thinking about selling it at Hershey in the fall, and then we had a viewer that hit us up and really wanted to buy it. And he was a good fit, and we sold the vehicle to him. And but that was a good example. I got it out of my system.
Yep.
I wanted to build it. I didn't need to drive it cross country. I did drive it a bunch around.
Dude, I couldn't imagine driving that cross country. That
would beat you up. But it was a neat thing. So yeah, there's a lot of guys that they build a car, and they have a formula, and they build it, and then they sell it, and they build the next one, or they find it, and they're always building new ones. And that's kind of the build process is probably the fun for them. There's nothing wrong with that.
Hunting the parts down, put it all together, have a finished project, and then they don't get the satisfaction of driving it. They don't find that as fun. So pass along, start with a new one, and just rinse and repeat forever.
Yeah, because it is kind of neat. I do this a little bit, like showing up to local events. I'm always in a different car, so people never know. So that's probably what that feeling is you build it, you show up to a new event, something new to talk about.
Yeah.
And then after you've brought it 10 times to all your local shows, everybody's seen it. So it's okay, that's boring. Let me build something new. So every season or two trying to.
And we have some customers that buy stuff from us. Every winter they hit us up and they're like, hey, I'm building this new project, X, Y, and Z, and they'll buy a bunch of parts from us. And it's every winter they hit us up. It's dude, how many? You're got a new project every winter. Yeah, I got rid of that other car and building something new. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, that's definitely
pumping them out.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. So probably the other way is, and the again, Berlinville made me think of this is the racing, and you guys probably saw the videos we got to. I picked up the Arden from San Giovanni's, and we got to sit down and do a little podcast with Ron and Laura, which was super cool. And it is. Ron tells you when I first brought my engine, Berlinville and land speed, that is his obsession at this current point in his life. And
6 months out of the year, he doesn't care how much money you have. If you bring him an engine, he only works on it 6 months out of the year. Basically, the other 6 are focused on land speed racing and building the car for racing. That's
right.
It.
So he's a good example. It's that's what. I think, well, maybe he's not a perfect example, but because he obviously enjoys, they're still going out to a ton of.
Who's a better example? Probably EJ, because he just eats, sleeps, and breathes land speed racing and drag racing and circle track racing.
Just racing in general.
Yeah.
Every weekend, he's at a different race event.
All over, not just local either. He's like
all over the country.
Oh, it's insane. Every time he posts, it's like he was in Indy this weekend.
Yeah.
Or he's in California. He's everywhere.
So that's a good example of somebody that he doesn't really do a lot of car shows, and if he does, it's probably because he has one of the race cars on display promoting their race series. So there's a lot of guys that they just live, breathe, eat, sleep, racing. And for me, we get that question a lot, like, why aren't you guys building a race car or whatever? Like, I enjoy watching.
Yeah.
I enjoy the history of it, but I never have liked, I guess I've seen the downside with friends of like all the time and money, and then you take it to the track and then it doesn't work, or it breaks, or the first time you take it out, it breaks. And then you're like, okay, well, that, a years of my life or a year. So like, at least when I'm like, street cars, you can enjoy the stuff a little easier.
Yeah, the jalopy racing, I think, is definitely a lot less stressful.
Yeah.
Because you're racing cars that are all kind of, there's very little improvement to make like one person much faster. But we have a bunch of friends that did actual drag racing, and it's like you spend a ton of money. My favorite story of Jason Lacombe is that they had that Mustang.
Yeah.
They worked on it all week, then they took it to the drag strip and they forgot the keys to the car. And then they were like 2 hours away. They had to turn around, drive back, get the keys to the car, drive all the way back, and they made like one pass and had a problem with the car. It's like all that work just to make one pass, and your entire weekend's ruined. And then you probably don't even want to look at the car the next week because you're so frustrated.
I get so stressed. I just get anxiety with that. So I never. I like some of these fun like heads up drag racing and different events. Like I go to the Allentown that EJ and crew puts on because it's fun. I can just show up. If you decide to race, you can race. If you want to hang out, there's no preparation,
and it's very low key. There's not 10,000 people there, and
it's not like a crazy tech process and all that. And they're not going fast. Let's be real. They're not going fast, but it's fun, and that's the part of it for me. But some people definitely enjoy being competitive. So, is there any other, like, the racing obviously is a big thing. I would say another one is history, because with the my local town, there's a Boyertown Auto Museum.
Yes.
And I'm on the board there, and I help out a little bit there, but I've been, a lot of the volunteers there, I've been noticing there's some volunteers there that are strictly into the history for classic cars. They don't even own a classic car, but they can just, the one guy, Dan, that I've been friends with for years, he worked with him at Eastwood. He doesn't have an antique car. I don't think he's ever owned an antique car, but he's been involved in the museum, and he has more knowledge up here.
Yeah, he's like a history book. It's crazy.
Yeah, so he loves the history, and that's how he enjoys the hobby. He goes to racing events. He goes to circle track events. He goes to car shows. He's at the museum all the time around the antique cars, but it's the history.
Yeah.
And I could see myself also, like, I enjoy that. Like, again, racing, I enjoy racing history, and it's the speed equipment and stuff and some of that historical side of it.
Another good example is Pete's friend Paul.
Oh, yeah.
He transitioned. He was into racing, did a ton of racing, and now he's just more of the history. He owns a private museum that's all about Pennsylvania's circle track racing, and he doesn't really do any other form of racing. He's just focused on the history of PA racing, and that's it. He doesn't do much of anything else, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And that's just his obsession. He's just super focused on that now.
And I've noticed that, like, going to shows, there's guys that you run into at events over and over and over again, and you rarely ever see them, like, they don't have a car. Or, again, never really gets done. Maybe they have a car, but they can tell you what color, one of the Barris cars was in the spring of 57. Because they're just so into the history of it, which I think is equally as important, because those people are keeping the history alive. Maybe they collect ephemera and different stuff like that, which is totally cool.
Oh, yeah, that's another whole niche of dudes that just collect books and manuals and
car club plaques and jackets and just, the memorabilia side of things, which is really, it's good because it's keeping all those little pieces of the big picture of this hobby going. And because that guy only collects car club plaques and he doesn't really have a car on the road, there's no reason that that's a bad thing. He enjoys the history of it all, and if they want to stand around and look at their car club plaques on the wall and rearrange them, nothing wrong with that. We're all enjoying the hobby.
The moral of the story is any way you enjoy the hobby is important because it keeps the hobby alive.
Yes, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, and pinstriping and sign painting. There's guys that are really, they're more of artists, and they're at every car event. But the guy really is more of an airbrusher, sign painter. There's painters that don't really have cars.
Yeah.
They paint, they don't really have any cars on the road, but they've painted a lot of cars. They've done sign painting. And like, they're well known in the hobby and the industry. And because they don't have a car on the road or, whatever, maybe they just enjoy the painting side of it. So it's really neat that it's neat with us doing this for long enough now. We're starting to meet some people at events that you see, like younger people that get into it, and seeing how they kind of steer, their way, and the thing that they find that they latch onto that they really like, and and that's kind of neat. Even with the types of cars, we meet people that are like, a father-son, and the father was into muscle cars his whole life, and the son saw Race a Gentleman on Instagram or social media, and now all of a sudden they're into jalopy racing, and they're super into it because they saw something, and it's like, they just navigate through it. So, you might latch on to the sign painting side of things or the lettering, and now that's a thing. So
is there any other facets of the hobby that we didn't cover?
Not a ton. I mean, I think the last one was kind of the artist thing that we went through. You could probably spread it from, I said sign painting, but we could probably spread it to artists in general, because there's artists that are just literally drawing cars.
Yeah, or photographers.
Anyways, I missed a whole
medium of art. Yeah.
Yes. So photography probably is equally as
Spike's screaming at the camera as he's watching, at the screen as he's watching.
Yeah. So there's a ton of people that are, photography is their thing.
Yeah.
And again, maybe they have a car, they have cars or a project car, but you see them at every event or racing events and stuff, and they have their camera and they're shooting photos, and I probably could think of a handful of people I know that are photographers that you more think of them with the cameras than you do thinking of them with a car. So that's a big part of it. So I think any of those things are fine. It's just whatever. You don't have to feel guilty that because you really enjoy photography and you don't have your car at the show, you don't have to feel,
there's literally no right way to enjoy the hobby. It's whatever brings you the most joy in all of this.
Yeah, and I had that, like, the other week, I had that epiphany while driving. Kate and I had, like, the best day. It was, like, a day that Kate and I got up early. We have a local, flea market that's gotten pretty big that's, like, I don't know, 5 miles down the road. Kate and I got up early, went to the flea market, took the 32 Roadster, and we drove to the flea market, hung out all, for a handful of hours. We drove and got coffee after that, and like in our little town in the Roadster, and then I took the Roadster and drove it to hang out with a friend, and like pretty much the Roadster was the theme here. Like, I didn't have to go to a show, but I had like a fantastic day just driving old cars to do kind of normal stuff. The weather was pretty decent, and it was just like at the end of the day, like, we were like done, and I'm like, eating dinner. I'm like, that was pretty cool. Like,
it's a good day.
I didn't have a plan, but like the whole theme was I just drove the Roadster all over the place and had a lot of fun and hung out with friends, and we did a bunch of stuff, and that was a good. We went to we were just driving and went to like a rummage sale at a church, and just parked in front of the church, and it was
there's a good photo of that.
Yeah, like we owned the joint, and we walked in and just rummaged around, and then got in the Roadster and took off again, and it was like there was no plan for the day. It was just drive an old car and have fun. And I really enjoyed it. And it's like, so like that day, at the end of the day, I was like, and I think even that day that night I drove to the Macungie Cruise Inn.
Oh yeah.
And, went to that, like, and then I'm, 10 o'clock, that's what it was. It was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night in the dark. I'm driving home, and I was just like thinking, like, this was like such a great day. Like, I didn't, like, a handful of my friends went to another event that was further away, that was, sit in line, get in the show, sit all day, whatever. And like, I had more fun doing this other stuff. So I like realized really quickly, like, I didn't need to go to the big show. I did all the other stuff, and it was a ton of fun. So that's the moral of the story.
Yes.
Enjoy the hobby however the hell you want. Don't let anybody make you feel guilty. Just somehow enjoy the hobby.
Yeah.
And in the end, you only have one life, and enjoy
Yeah. Ignore what everyone else says and do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want. If it brings you joy and you're not hurting someone else.
Yeah, I listen to him. Yeah, that's probably better.
If you're a serial killer and you're watching,
please stop.
Don't go on a killing spree. But like when we're talking the car stuff, definitely. However you enjoy it. If you want to go to the flea market, if you don't want to go to the big show this morning because you just don't feel like it, and you want to drive your car and get coffee, that's just as cool. Don't make anybody think that it's not.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it. So that's all I have for this one. I want you guys we have great discussion in the comments on these podcasts and these topics.
Yeah.
How do you enjoy the hobby? That's what I want to leave you guys with. Like how do you enjoy the hobby? What's the way that you enjoy it? And like what's your ideal day?
That's a good way to put it. How would you spend your ideal day in the hobby?
If you had the perfect summer day where it's like
not 95 degrees like it is today.
Like it is today, and we're sweating our butts off just filming this. So if it's like a low 70-degree high day, no rain, 0% chance of rain, the sun's out, maybe partly cloudy, it's a great day. How would you spend your day if you had no obligations with the car stuff?
Yeah.
Like, let us know down in the comments. We'd love to hear that. Like, what's your favorite facet of the hobby? So, thank you guys for listening and watching. As always, if you're listening, you can definitely head on over to YouTube. Mike's going to have some stuff that he edits in for visual that's really cool. And thanks, as always, for listening to us ramble and shoot the breeze. Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.